Welcome to Pharmacy View podcast, where we provide regular interviews with pharmacists and key people within the Australian pharmacy and associated industry. In this stream of podcast episodes, we discuss aspects of technology or business operation and how each area interacts with guests' current role or pharmacy-related business. I'm your host, Scott Carpenter, and my guest today is proudly brought to you by Shopfront Solutions for all your digital, shelf and marketing needs, part of the Arian Technologies Group. Have you considered what the pharmacy market may be like in 2023? Our guest today certainly has. I'm talking today with the owner and pharmacy expert from Peak Strategies in Western Australia. Welcome, John Thornett.
Good. Hello. Good to see you and good to be with you. Pleasure to be here.
Excellent. And we were discussing just, I guess, offline, you and I haven't necessarily had the opportunity to meet face to face, although we possibly have bumped into each other at the odd WA forum over time.
Yeah.
It's great to meet you, but I also would expect that quite a few people know you from your history within pharmacy. But for anyone listening today that may not know, who is John Thornett?
Who is John Thornett? Well, I'm a chartered accountant. I'm a chartered accountant. I have my own business over in Western Australia here called Peak Strategies, and we just 100% look after community pharmacies. That's my entire client base is community pharmacies, and I've been doing this for over 25 years. I've been involved in pharmacy, so it's one of those things that I really enjoy. I don't hang out with accountants. I can't remember the last time I went to an accounting conference, but you give me a pharmacy conference and I'm there. So, but they're my people, and this is what I enjoy doing. So I'm married. I've got two kids in the 20s, and life is very, very good. But yeah, we immerse ourselves in this industry. It's what we do. My entire team, we have about 11 people scattered throughout the world in Philippines and Indonesia and across Australia, but this is what we immerse ourselves in. So, but these are our people. This is what we do, and it's a great deal of fun, I must say.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I guess at the beginning, certainly you have a pretty good network within pharmacy, but and as much as you focus on the pharmacy industry, you won't have started in the pharmacy industry, I wouldn't imagine. So how did the transition from chartered accountant into pharmacy financial management?
Well, I suppose like most good stories, these things happen by accident. So I was over in WA here. I'm a Curtin University boy, which is where most of the pharmacists come from. They're all Curtin Uni people, graduates. And so my first job outside of uni, as a young accountant, having the faintest idea what I'm doing, I despised that job with a passion. Absolutely hated it, and despised every moment of it. But as luck would have it, my mates from uni worked at another accounting firm next door in the city, and they're looking for an accountant, and I went in there. And when I got a job with this other accounting firm, I ended up spending 15 years there, and I went from this junior accountant all the way through to partner, and it's had such great memories of being with that accounting firm. You know, the people. And particularly as you evolve as a business. Now, there was a particular time, and this accounting firm looked after pharmacies. They had a pool of pharmacies on their books when I came on board, and that's when my experience basically started. And as you go along, as you know, you get one pharmacist and you get two. You get two pharmacy clients, then you get five, you get 10, and you slowly build up these things, and you look after people, and over time you get a bit, quite good knowledge better knowledge in the industry about what's happening. But there was a period of time where our bank manager at the time, incidentally, he was in health, and he was the bank manager that looked after pharmacy. And he said to us at one point, look, we have no one here on our bank valuation panels in WA. Do you want to do it? So, mate, we're there, 100%. And so before too long, we were probably valuing about 75% of just about everything that happened in WA. I'm still a bank panel valuer now after all those years. So the valuations side is a huge part of what I do. But that's when it really grew, and I left there 2010 to start Peak Strategies, and my goal there was personally I needed to tick off a box in my life that says I can run a successful business. And that was a personal thing that I needed to tick off. And that was like a goal that I'd set myself. So I think I've got to do this on my own if we're going to tick off that personal goal. And that's when Peak Strategy started from. And that decision was, right, I'm just looking after pharmacy. That's what I'm good at. That's all I'm going to look after. And then we slowly transitioned, and the non-pharmacy clients left, and we just built on pharmacy clients, one after the other across Australia. I do a lot of valuations now. So, so it's just one of these things that's grown, and it's one of these, there's certain things in life you can tick off, like your first love, your first kiss, when you get your driver's license, your first job, things like that. Getting married, your first child. There's particular things in your life of certain things that you tick off.
Oh, I thought you were going to say your first marriage there for a second.
Married once, will stay married forever.
Correct.
And one of those things is when you master your profession. It's one of those things that when you love what you do, it's one of those things. It just fills your soul with so much joy. So
from that perspective, yeah. And look, I can probably just throw a little anecdote in here. I joined the pharmacy industry about 25 years ago from another completely different field. At the point in time, I got asked what I know about pharmacy, and I said outside of, going to the doctor, getting a script and handing it in, not a lot. And the response at that point in time was that, look, that's cool. We're the pharmacists. We'll teach you the pharmacy side of the business. We need you to teach us the retail business and the team leadership side of things, which was, I guess, the area that I came from. And I got to a point, if I can digress with this just a little bit, because it'll lead back to what you've said, that in the first year I still didn't understand a lot about pharmacy. In the second year I started to make a little bit of sense, and in the third year it all clicked. And I guess my learning in those first 3 years is what I then coached other team members on, and that was that if you've come into the industry outside of pharmacy, don't expect to understand it in the first year. It potentially won't make a lot of sense. But when you turn over your first anniversary, all of a sudden a couple of things will start to click in, and you'll have done something twice, you'll have done something a third time, and by the third year you'll have either made a decision to stay and continue quite a long career in pharmacy, or actually you'll have decided this isn't for you, but we'll have both got some value out of that first year or two either way. And I think that's the point that I wanted to hone in with you, is that when you're in pharmacy and you get it and you understand it and you meet the great people that are involved in it, it's actually then very hard to get away from it, isn't it?
Yeah, look, you make a very good point, because there's a couple of things that really sings with your soul here. And the people in the industry is one thing that it generates so much joy, because the people in the industry are wonderful. And it's from that perspective, you love being part of it. And one of the other aspects of it's unusual, particularly in my profession, being an accountant, it's actually quite unusual for someone to specialize that much and in being so niched. It's actually quite unusual. And there's not many accountants I know, because I tend to stick in the pharmacy world. But for those that I do know, there's why do you do that? And for mine, you can be I could call an all-round sports star as an accountant and have small business and people from all different industries. But the fact that, I can have any pharmacy owner come to see me and I know what issues are going on in their industry. I know where their pain points are. I know where their trends are. I can look at their business and I know where they're doing good, bad, or indifferent, because I know what everyone else is doing. And there's that level of knowledge means there's so much more you can give. so much more value you can provide. And just from a simple conversation or just meeting someone for a cuppa, there's that much more knowledge that you can provide, that much more value. And that is something that just, it just ticks it off in my mind. It just ticks it off in my soul that, I've got a great ability to help people.
Yeah, and certainly, and I'm sure you'll concur with this as well, when you then, having all of this knowledge and experience, sit with a pharmacy industry stakeholder or pharmacist, that person on the other side of the table very quickly realizes that you've got some experience and you've got some knowledge, and all of a sudden you become in sync, and the conversation and the credibility around the conversation then becomes a lot more valuable, doesn't it?
Correct. And that's exactly why we do it. It's, the conversations we have that much more value to them. We can help them out. And it's, reassuring from the client's perspective that they're talking to someone who understands them, because pharmacy's it's not like a cafe or a restaurant or anything like that. And as you've been in the industry as long as I have, it's a unique beast. It's a very, very unique beast. And once you know it, it's a great advantage to have. But as you know, coming in here in your first year, like I experienced, and like you just said, you experienced, you come into this industry and think, wow, there's actually quite a bit to this.
From that perspective, yeah. Now, we're going to get around to the technology platforms that you use, because that's somewhat the basis for this podcast. But if I come back to the point, I quoted a comment from one of your LinkedIn posts. Have you considered what the pharmacy market may be like in 2023? I guess they certainly has. So from a Peak Strategies perspective, what's the current beat within the pharmacy industry? There's a lot going on. I know I follow the Guild fairly actively in terms of the extended scope of practice, but what's going on from your perspective? What do you see 2023 looking like?
Well, 21, 22 leading into 23, we've got very conflicting things that are happening within the industry, because you've gone from this world of COVID, and one of the things that really highlighted was how critical community pharmacy is within community healthscape, because they were always open, they were always accessible, that it doesn't matter what was going on in the industry, you knew you could go to your pharmacy and get your medications, that you could talk to someone, assume you weren't diseased with the plague and everything. But community pharmacy was open, and their reputation really grew of, we're on the front line here, but we stayed open. And it was really, really critical, but it was really good to see. And then we went through this phase of, particularly WA, of border closures. And then what happened with that, with border closures, people couldn't travel. So what happened was you were in a phase where people had to go to pharmacy because they needed hand sanitizers, they needed masks, they needed a rat, they needed a vaccination. Most people at some stage during that 21, 22 year had to go to a pharmacy and regularly. And they couldn't travel. And so what you saw was pharmacy was making coin all of a sudden. They were incredibly busy. Absolutely flat out. I don't think many of them want to go through that phase ever again. It was exhausting for them all. But from the business perspective, it was really good. And I've done so many valuations over the last year or so that, when you look at the data, 21 and 22 across the board was really good for pharmacy businesses. But we're in a different world now. You've got this thing called inflation. You've got these things called interest rates. Interest rates have been going up. Why have they been going up? Because they need to kill inflation. How do they kill inflation? By stop people spending money. And so with all these pressures going on, you've got huge demand on labour. It's dreadful in the industry at the moment, particularly with the labour shortages, which I'll come back to that topic. But you've got this question mark going on of, well, if the economy's here and government policy and fiscal policy is designed to slow down consumer spending, well, what's going to happen? Because people don't have to go to a pharmacy anymore for masks or rats or anything like that. They don't have to go there. And people can travel, which means tourists come in, but also tourists go out as well. But also, if the family purse has to be tightened because of inflation, because of higher interest rates, etc., well, what does that mean for demand for pharmacy? It just raises a big enough question. Now, the market to buy pharmacy has been very, very active. Like it's been a huge couple of years, and the premiums being paid has been quite substantial. And I sort of raised the question of, well, if you're in the market to buy, have you really taken into account what 23 may potentially look like? Don't assume 22 is going to be the same, because it's not. And you know, some of the really good owners that I talk to over here, they say, if we can make the same dollars as 22, we'll call that a successful year. So it's going to be really interesting to see what's happened. Now, one of the other competing things going on here, of course, is that you cannot find a pharmacist for love or money. There's none around. And you've got owners who are properly exhausted at the moment. And it's actually quite a big issue, because you look at the exhaustion levels and the mental health of owners who are doing an insane amount of hours. You wonder, it's just not sustainable what's going on. And the thing about that is the lack of pharmacists and how tight the resourcing is that, well, how much money they're leaving on the table by not being able to service their patients to fullest extent and not being able to really grasp all the pharmacy service opportunities, not being able to spend a bit more time with the patient because you've got 50 others in front of you who are screaming at you. It just raises that question of, well, I wonder how much money's leaving on the table, because I know talking to some of our clients and other pharmacy owners that I know over here, just can't do everything. It's just not enough time. So you've got that issue as well of the labour pain, and knowing that the labour pain's not going away anytime soon. And it's a real issue, because our owners over here, they're just exhausted. It's quite a problem. But 23, you just put a little question mark and highlight against that of, don't assume 22 is going to be the same, because there's a lot of things, a lot of issues right now that weren't in existence in 21 and 22. It's a different world.
And look, I think you raised another really good point there, if we can chat about that for a second, was that you're right, pharmacist business owners have really been stretched. And not only have you potentially missed revenue opportunities, but in terms of two of your biggest expenses being labour and then also stock, you really actually haven't had the time to make sure that you're maximising both of those either, are you? So in reality, there's probably been some wages blown because you just need people on the floor and you've got to get them at whatever price you can get them at, with no negotiation or no ability. But has the same thing then happened with stock? Now, my experience in the pharmacy industry is that, you know, the ability to negotiate significant, you know, margin changes in stock is not that great anyway, but potentially on a volume it is. And again, if a sales rep coming in from a company's got this really good, you know, cold and flu or hay fever deal, you know, you haven't had the time to say, yeah, but what else can I get, kind of thing, or is there any more margin in that? You've just said, yeah, okay, where do I sign and move on with it? So there's potentially some 0.1, 0.2 percentage points of margin that have been missed, but also in terms of salaries, there's potentially been some labour spent that not done out of just, I need to get a body on the floor, not done because I I've got the money or not, or I've had to get a locum at an extremely high price because that's all I can get. So that's got to have had an influence. Two of the biggest expenditure items on your P&L have also been influenced through this time as well, irrespective of the fact that revenue is up.
Yeah. And of course, add on to that your leases as well, particularly those whose leases have a renewal clause of CPI. And when you were thanking your lucky stars, a couple of years ago that you had a lease that said CPI because it was going up by a tiny margin, now you get a renewal in these months and all of a sudden you're up 8% or whatever it is. All of a sudden, gee, that got expensive real quick. So, if you're paying, whereas before COVID, you would have been paying, say, $40 an hour for a pharmacist. Now you're probably not going to get them for less than 50. Locums are huge, but that's not to say they're not worth it, because it's about time they got paid what they're worth. And I don't think anyone argues that these people aren't worth it, but the rates have gone up. And whilst it is expensive, I also think that's not a bad thing, because I'm glad pharmacists are actually getting paid what they're worth. But you got those expenses going up, and if you combine that with potential subdued demand, you've got a squeeze happening. So it's just one of those things just to be careful of, and particularly identify what your margin of error is before things start getting real tight.
Out of control, yeah. So, John, before we move on to some of the technology platforms that you use, is there anything else that yourself and the team at Peak Strategies are up to at the moment that we can share with the listeners?
Yeah, well, there's a lot happening in our world. So certainly the valuation space has been huge. There's been a lot going on in valuation world. We've been spending a great deal of time working with owners from a marketing space as well. It's one of my firm beliefs that it's just not enough attention being given to it, and particularly if you're going to head into an era of potentially subdued consumer demand, the one thing you do need to do is make sure that you're communicating with your community even at higher levels than what you're doing before. So that marketing element is something that we're quite strong on, because something where it's a firm belief that you've got to be good at that to be able to hear. To be able to stand out from the rest of the noise. The other things that have been going on, we'll be doing quite a bit of work we've got a program called the Pharmacy Mastermind Program, which is basically to help owners to transform themselves to get a more profitable, sustainable business model. And we've been putting a great deal of work into that over the last couple of years. We're working with some great pharmacies and seeing some great results around that. And seeing some as one particular client, we got their profit to increase by nearly 40-50%. It was, the cracking store, absolute cracking store. But to see the turnaround in their profitability is another one I'm working on. We've managed to double their profit in 12 months. So we get some really good results there just by working with those teams. But of course, we always look forward, and we've got some, I won't say anything just yet because marketing will kill me. But we've got a number of great, programs that we're developing for next year. We've been doing a lot of work in the partner space of, educating and helping, first-time pharmacists, looking for their first opportunity and helping them through from becoming junior partners and working partners, and helping in that space. We've been issuing a lot of content on there because we do we do podcasts as well with a lot of blogs. Our website is just crammed full of content there for people to go and access. But particularly there's a lot of stuff we have there on partnership material just to really help the young ones when they're coming in. They got some access to some content there that can help them in their journey. So we have a lot going on, but this is how we work. This is our active space. This is what we're good at.
Yeah, and it's almost like certainly a transition from an accountancy firm to a business partner service is what you're doing, isn't it? It's filling the gaps, and as we both know, each business, each pharmacy owner has strengths and weaknesses, and again, it's being able to adapt and help them with what this particular business needs versus that one over there. So. Yeah,
it really comes down to that key point of you just want to help people. And, and being in pharmacy, there's businesses there that we want to help. We can do all their taxation and compliance, but there's more to a business than just that. And I know myself and my team, we just love to be able to help people, and particularly the new ones coming in, as we want to give them a helping hand as well, and to guide them through these critical years and making some, really huge decisions in their life. And to be able to guide them through that is, it's quite a pleasing thing to be able to do. So it's been certainly been very active. I know we've had a very, very good year. COVID hit us like everyone else, and my team got absolutely belted from that. But and funnily enough, we're still going through it now. And just last week, we've lost half the office to COVID, so the damn thing's still not gone away. But there's a lot of good things happening and a lot to look forward to for next year. So we don't sit still for very long.
Absolutely. No, look, that's great. So, John, talk to us about some of the technology platforms that you use in your business to help your clients. What have we got on the table?
Yeah, well, there's, like many, you're a firm believer that, adversity brings opportunity. Whenever there's a problem, you sit back long enough and you find the opportunity with it. And one of the things is how easy it is now to communicate with people. Because here are you and I see each other from the other side of Australia, and we can talk quite freely. And so things like using Zoom and Teams like that, using those types of things just to have simple conversations and not via phone call or anything like that. So, the ability to have conversations with first-time pharmacy owners that are in Victoria, in New South Wales or South Australia or Queensland or something like that. We're quite often sitting here having a simple Zoom conversation and helping someone and just having a simple conversation. So that is one of the big things that's really changed, in your ability to be able to talk to people across Australia, even across the world. And we're talking to our people, daily in the Philippines and Indonesia. So that has changed immensely. The other thing that's, because we do a lot of work in bookkeeping space. So we have a big team that's involved in basically reconciling, preparing financial statements for pharmacy owners on a monthly basis. And of course, one of the important aspects of that is I suppose, to use the simple thing, you've got to automate the repetitive. And, you try and automate as much as possible and leave the human element out of it, particularly on repetitive things. And of course, your main accounting software suppliers like Xero and MyOb have just come on in leaps and bounds over the last 5-10 years. And even if you look forward, they've got so many new features coming up, and your ability to basically prepare a reconciled set of financial statements for a pharmacy using one of those platforms. They're all much of the same. And people say, well, do you prefer MyOb or Xero? And you got, it's a personal preference, really. You got the same data going in, the same data going out, being processed roughly the same way. Those look different colours and slightly different features. But essentially, they do the same job. But the efficiency with which you can process a set of financial statements is that much better. And you combine that with other, there's other, like, call them add-ons. And a good example of that is a program called Dext, which used to be called Receipt Bank, which is great because that allows you to, and as we know with pharmacy, they have a hell of a lot of supplier invoices over the course of a month. When you can grab them and basically feed it straight into your MyOb or Xero with very little human touch points, the efficiency is fantastic. So to be able to see, and the technology here is really clever because it basically takes a PDF of an invoice and identifies the supplier, the ABN, the total, GST, etc., and then bang, pops that straight into your Xero or MyOb or whatever it is, with quite an efficient system. The labour saving is huge, and the rate of change within that world is enormous. And one of the latest things which we got to get our head around is even from an employee perspective, because wages and processing wages is a huge thing. So there's a lot of automation in regards to onboarding new employees, etc. There's a lot of automation within those two software programs of timesheets and the clocking on and clocking off. So the pace of technology within those systems is just enormous. And particularly from an accountant's perspective is you then have that link between what the clients do and how that links to your own systems for you to prepare financial statements and tax returns, etc. as well. And so one of the links there is, again, you've got this continual flow of data that can go from a transaction at a business front through to their monthly financial statements, and sometimes without a human touching it, through to your accountant to prepare year-end financial statements. And the amount of human touch points along there is just becoming less and less and less.
Yeah.
And I think the efficiency is huge.
Yeah. I think you made a statement there earlier on, which I think actually sums this up, and automate the repetitive. And the reality, pharmacy uses a lot of technology across all of its pharmacy, but in reality, if you are time poor today, one of the things that you could sit back and look at, and even get one of your key team members to sit back and look at it, is what are the things that you or your team are doing manually on a regular basis that takes time and resourcing, that, is there a tech platform there that kind of supports that?
Yeah. And I think you'd be quite surprised how much there is available, because most pharmacy owners will be aware of packing machines or, your dispensing robots, etc. And the efficiency there is quite a lot. But there's actually more out there as well. I was talking to a gentleman a couple of weeks ago who works with some of my clients, and some of the software that he's developed that just helps with ordinary repetitive things, which helps in the pharmacy. So there's actually a lot more available once you really dig into it. And of course, you look at your packing machines and the efficiencies that you can save there. You look at your dispensing robots and the efficiencies that you can save there. And then you go back to your accounting software and particularly go talk to your bookkeepers and talk to your accountants about how can you do things better, because a lot of these programs do have add-on, bits of software that, again, that can make your, the month-end processing that much more easier. And when you combine all that together, sometimes the labor savings can actually be quite significant. And, if you do really explore it, there's more out there again. So there's quite a number of, automation tools around there that you really need to focus on, because if you're going to have humans, if we take a real unemotional perspective on it, if you're going to have humans, let humans do what they are really good at. And humans are really good at face-to-face communications. That is what they excel at. And I was actually interested in having a conversation with a client regarding dispensing robots. And one of the interesting things that he was saying is, because of the efficiencies that he was getting, particularly in regards to dispensing a script and the time savings there, and look at time savings regarding putting stock away. But one of the changes was you had the team doing less back of office, call it administrative things, and that team then spent more time on the floor than talking to customers. And so what happened, and particularly in their experience, is because there was more team talking to customers, sales went up. And so in this particular case, he had about an 18% increase in GP dollars for no change in wage expense. It just went straight to profitability. And it's a very good example of really focusing on, if there's something, a repetitive action that your team are doing, how can you automate that and remove the human element? And if you're going to have a human element, let them do what humans do best and talk to people. and be out the front talking to people. And if you can do that, your pharmacy are only ever going to win because you're giving people exactly what they want, and that's human interaction.
Yeah. And John, as we both know, the pharmacy network is very, very good. And certainly if you're, as a pharmacist listening today, or a retail manager or a business owner listening today, and you take on board this automate the repetitive, it's not that hard to ring one of your peers, one of your friends, one of your industry contacts and say, hey, I've identified this in my pharmacy. What do you do in your pharmacy? And potentially the solution may only be a phone call or two away in reality.
Yeah.
John, we're I think sadly, because it's been a great chat, coming to the end of our time today, it would almost be that we could possibly do another episode, and we may look at that in the new year. But as you mentioned, Peak Strategies has its own very good website, Facebook, blogs and podcasts, and I've been stalking you guys surreptitiously behind the scenes on that as well. So, but before we do close, was there anything else on your list today that we haven't covered off that you wanted to cover off?
Yeah, well, certainly, particularly for the viewers, our website, peakstrategies.com.au, go in there, you can sign up to our pharmacy hub, and there's an enormous amount of content there of blogs that myself, Priya, my other director, and my marketing team have written there. So there's an enormous amount of content there available to you. We've got our podcast, Speaking Pharmacy Podcast, which we talk, I don't know how many episodes we're in now, but we've done quite a few that we talk to a lot of owners and people in the industry. And again, it's all just value about education and how to do things better. But by all means, go check out our website. My team are very active on LinkedIn. You can see Peak Strategies on LinkedIn, as well as myself, John Thornett, and my other team, Priya, etc. Go check us out on LinkedIn. You can check us out on Instagram and Facebook as well. So the marketing machine is alive and well, but we're very active in that area, that's for sure. There's a lot of value we like to give out to people.
No, that's excellent. John, it's been great to chat today. I really appreciate your time and look forward to staying in touch. And as you mentioned, we'll include all of your business and business contact details in the show notes, which will be attached to the podcast as well. Thanks for your time today.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure speaking with you. Talk soon.
Thank you for listening today. Pharmacy View is a technology-focused podcast provided by Melbourne-based business Arian Technologies and Shopfront Solutions. Over the podcast series, our guests include pharmacists, retail managers, wholesalers, suppliers, and industry technology partners. If you would like further information on our podcast series or to participate in one of our episodes, feel free to send me a message or touch base through the Pharmacy View website, pharmacyview.com.au.